Hi, my name's Lionel Windsor and I'm one of the faculty members at Moore College. One of the things that we do at Moore College each year is that we all, as students and faculty, head off. We split into teams and we head to various places throughout the world, in Australia and Sydney, in order to run what we call a mission and be part of a mission where we're seeking to partner with other Christians, churches, and share the gospel of Jesus with others. Just this year, I was involved with taking a team of students to Penrith Anglican Church. And so I have here Mark Bolas. You can introduce yourself, Mark.
Sure. My name's Mark Bolas. I'm the Associate Minister at Penrith Anglican Church, St Stephen's. And I was able to oversee the Moore College team and the church side of things during our open week, our Moore College mission.
Now the purpose of this video is that basically when we got to the end of our mission week, I realised that we'd actually had a really, really good experience. It was a great experience for the students and a really great experience, I think, for the church as well. And I wanted to sort of ask Mark the kind of some questions about what they were doing behind the scenes. How did they, under God, make it work? There was a lot of prayer, there was a lot of things that were happening. And the reason I want to do that is because I think that it could be helpful for other churches and anyone who is considering partnering with Moore College in a future mission. And maybe helpful tips, ideas, thoughts about what it actually does involve to be involved in the mission. So we're basically just picking Mark's brains and trying to see what kind of things can be transferable from what they did to what could generally make a Moore College mission work really well. So that's the purpose of this. We're just going to have a bit of a chat and I'll probably discover some things as well. Just to summarise, Mark, one of the reasons that it worked really well, I think, from our point of view, is that our students were really, really engaged in the ministry and mission of the gospel. We got there and what we felt that we were doing was just plugging into something that was happening. There were members of the church, people who are Christians there who were seeking to share the gospel of Jesus with their friends. We were able to plug into that. We were able to help. We were able to partner. We were able to learn a whole lot of things. We had so many opportunities to share the gospel ourselves, many in partnership with others. And also, it was actually just really organised. So we didn't have to spend our time worrying about or thinking about, like, I don't know what I'm doing or what's going on here or whatever. We could just get on with it and do it. So that's a summary of what made our experience really good. We're still talking about some of the things that we've learned. And we were just today praying for the follow-up because there are quite a few people who joined the church, became part of the fellowship, and the church has grown in so many different ways through that. So that's a kind of a summary. I want to ask you, Mark, maybe the first question is, what were you doing in the lead up to now we're calling it the mission, but that's the first thing, isn't it? It's not called the mission.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll start there. Why was it not called the mission? And what was it called?
That was one of the interesting decisions that came quite early on, was, as Lionel's indicated, our church owning the opportunity. And so one of the ways that we wanted to do that was to kind of define it and make it our own. And so our church language in previous years for similar outreach had been Open Week. And so we made it Open Week, like, publicly, which was familiar for our church people, but we're very explicit about that, even on our staff team, and from the staff team down, that we wouldn't speak about it as Moore College Mission, because it was a partnership where Moore College were helping us to outreach into our community, and so they were partnering with us in our Open Week. And so that was just an explicit way of indicating and reminding each other that that's what was going on. That seemed to be the reflection of the college team, was that was a genuine partnership, that it was them joining something that an Open Week that was being run, and so that was the nature of the partnership, even from the naming of it. Yeah,
that's great. Maybe I'm not sure if you intended this, but one of the things that came out of that name, Open Week, as well, is that the word mission is focused on us and what we're doing. We've got a mission.
Yep.
But the word Open Week is actually focused on the people that we're seeking to reach with the gospel.
Yep.
And so it actually focuses, even the name focuses us on the people we're seeking to reach rather than just on our own activities. So that was intentional?
I think it was intentional, and it was also like, it doesn't guarantee it just naming it that way. But I think that does shift your mindset from it being what we're doing to I guess push your focus outward even just in that.
Great. The next question I've got is, what were you doing in the lead up? So what are the kinds of things that you were doing, say take it way back to the previous year, what were you doing in the lead up, and then moving up to, what are the kind of activities that you were doing to prepare for it?
Yeah, sure. So I think we had our Moore College mission was like green lit, that we were having the team come out and partner with us. It was probably 7 months out, maybe a touch longer. And it was probably from about 6 months that we're like, okay, we're on. This is the main thing in front of us. And so some of the early decision making was structural, working out, okay, what are the moving parts here? How are we going to make sense of this opportunity? And so that involved going and creating a gigantic like whiteboard. To visualise like how this works together.
So what was on the whiteboard?
Yeah,
what did you put on it?
On the whiteboard there were three main areas that we divided up our structure, our leadership structure into. We had the events. Events were going to be a key aspect. So making decisions about them, what we're going to have, how that's going to work. That was one area, events. And then there was anything related to Moore College, and so anything like billeting and catering. And those aspects, they were another area. So events, then Moore College, and then the last was communication, both internal communication in the church, communication externally, what promotions are going to look like. Communication also included things like prayer. So how's prayer going to work? And feedback was also part of that. So they were our three big areas that we mapped out and then worked out, well, okay, if there are big areas, then what responsibility and how does that break down into leadership and who we need and how that's going to happen.
Now I understand that you yourself were so you're assistant minister at Penrith Anglican Church. Senior minister is Tom.
Correct.
Tom Harricks. Tom told me that he basically freed you up for pretty much the whole year, for at least 3 months or before.
That's right.
that.
Yeah.
So you weren't rostered on to preach very much.
No.
You were actually freed up in your time. So he took that cost.
It was a cost.
It meant that he was preaching sermons more and doing a whole lot of other things. And so you were there. Now, does that mean that you were, obviously your time was dedicated to it? So you were basically the person who was running mission, and it was just you? You were running everything? Or what? How did that work? What were you doing with your time that was freed up?
It became clear very quickly that I was the biggest limitation to mission going well, and so
until I came on board, and then I was.
And so very quickly it was like, oh, well, how can I use my time well in equipping and resourcing and identifying the people who are going to be the key leaders and the key coordinators. And so my time, which was freed up thankfully by Tom, it was a lot of meeting with people and just having conversations with people who might have been involved in various areas, whether that was events or whether that was like catering, billeting, whatever. So a lot of my time was taken up with those sorts of conversations. And so that gave me a good sense of where those people might fit. And I think spending that time in retrospect was really valuable to get the right people in the right places. And I don't think if I wasn't freed up to do that, I think I would have taken a lot more shortcuts and we might not have ended up with the good leadership group that we had.
Yeah, so you made that sacrifice, that time, and you used the time to get other people doing things. One of the things that there's just something that really struck me on the Saturday of the Open Week. We'd arrived the Sunday before. We were due to finish on the Sunday afterwards. The Saturday we had a lot of events. Many of those events had been very, very well attended. That is, people had invited their friends along. There was so much buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, what was it? You looked at some of the numbers, and we had about 50, you had 58 people, I think, coming along who were from outside the church and over those various events who'd come along to all sorts of events.
Yes.
All lots of good buy-in.
Yep.
And we'd done quite a lot during the week. And then we got to the Saturday, and actually the Saturday was quite empty. And there wasn't a lot on the Saturday.
Yep.
And there were a few things. We did some door knocking, which is really helpful. And the thing that struck me is when we asked, well, Saturday seems to be a day when lots of people are around. Why isn't much happening on the Saturday? And I think your answer, correct me if I'm wrong, your answer really crystallised for me why the open week was working so well. So you just said, well, no one really put up their hands to run much on the Saturday. And so we're not doing very much. And that struck me because it made me realise that was the kind of decision-making process you were going through. You weren't just saying, what are the events that we're going to run at the best time? You're actually focused on the people in your church who are actually running events. And because you were focused on the people at church running events, they had a lot of buy-in to it. And therefore, under God, people came because people were inviting their friends to events that they were running. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, right, do you want to say any more about how you got people involved?
Yeah,
people in
sure.
your church actually to have that buy-in and run those events?
So, like something that we noticed from previous years, and even from more college missions, and like those sorts of evangelistic opportunities, is that a lot of the time it's top down. Like you look at your demographics. Okay, we need to have a women's event, we need to have a men's event, we need to have a something else, a families event, for example. And so you lock in the times for them, and you like the ministry team or key people kind of like make that happen and generate all of the energy and the resources to make that happen. And I think one of the things we wanted to try out this time was to give people the opportunity, like anyone almost, to think through the people that God had placed around them, the particular like demographic that those people came from. And we gave people the opportunity to say, like, if you could invite these people to an event, like to hear about Jesus at an event, what sort of an event would that be? What sort of event would you love to invite your friends who don't know Jesus along to? And so that was a discussion that happened, again about 6 months out, and that like percolated a lot of thoughts for people who are not the sort of people who you'd expect to run events. They'd just never been asked those questions before. And as time went on and as some of those early discussions happened, it kind of gave permission for people to own some of those events. So the event that they thought, I'd love to invite my non-Christian like single mum who's struggling with anxiety and depression, like I'd love to invite them to this sort of event. And so our conversation would be, my conversation with that person would be, well, let us help you do that. And I think that permission really just helped spur along people's engagement in the events. It made it really easy for people to get on board with that, because it wasn't something that I'd cooked up. It wasn't my event. It was their friend at church's event, and they could appreciate where that was coming from, and they knew people like that as well, who single mums who struggle with anxiety and depression. So it was an easy invitation then. So it was really just enabling and resourcing people who had ideas to follow through with them and say, yes, we'd love to support you in that.
And that women's event, from what I heard, I didn't actually go to that one, but I heard that it was a real, one of the great events of the week. Sherry preached at it, did a great job from our team, but there was just, people were welcomed. We had so many guests, weren't there, who came along that was an evening event. That's right. Now, there were a couple of events, weren't there? There were two events. I've lost track of all the different events. That's right. I was at a pub question and answer
That's
night.
correct. Yes, you were.
Beef
Yep.
with God.
Yeah.
And that again, so many guests came along.
Yep.
And it was packed. It was the room was too small.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Because
It's a
we're
good
all
problem to
huddled
have.
together, answering these tough questions.
Yeah.
And as my impression is you put a lot. You set aside a lot of resources. Particularly your own time, or Tom set aside your time.
Mm-hmm.
You needed to do that, not in order that you would be running everything, but so that you could encourage, help, equip. You had a little form that you showed us before that you used as a basis to have conversations with people, where you asked them questions like, what's the purpose of this event?
Mm-hmm.
You asked them, what's the target audience?
Yep.
You asked them, you did a little, even had a little bit of a risk assessment in there. But you asked about, what's the budget, what's the point, how will we measure, the success of the events and that kind of thing. And you really had put that together in a way that was not so that you could run everything, but so that you actually had thought about it a lot. Really appreciated that. And we also appreciated the fact that as a team, we could see what Open Week was going to look like quite a number of weeks out, and we could say, okay, we need people who are going to, students who are going to be preaching here or doing this kids talk or whatever. And it was actually quite a relaxed lead up from our point of view. Not completely fully relaxed, but we knew what we were doing. We could just get in there and be part of it, which was really helpful for us. What about during the week? So tell us about during the week, how that worked. That is, what were you doing behind the scenes? What were you doing, just to what are some of the things that we didn't see?
Sure. During the week, I think one of the things that we realised during the week was that all of the planning and all of the structures and the hard work that had been done in the lead up just made the week itself maybe relaxed is an overstatement, but it just made it easier, and it gave a flexibility to what was able to happen. So the students knew exactly what they were doing and when and what the expectations were for them.
Which for us, relaxes, maybe the word is just full of energy.
Yeah, well, that's true. You can dedicate your energy to the...
Energised. That's right. Because we knew what we were doing.
Yes.
But we could also say, hey, I'm going to pull back from this a little bit. So we were able to say, so for some of the students, they needed to do a little bit more. So we say, okay, do this. So we need to say, pull back from that. But it was easy to do. So it was really energising for us.
And so having the week mapped out and having all of those things locked in, and the students knowing what they were doing and the team knowing what was happening, that I think that really helped the week itself to run well. There weren't too many surprises or anything like that. And students knew that, I think they were able to be more people-focused than event-focused throughout the week as a result. So one of the things that we'd structured into the week was for people to have the opportunity, students to have the opportunity to go and meet with any church people that they'd met on the Sunday, the first Sunday, go and make a time to read the Bible with them somewhere. And a lot of them took up that opportunity and could, and it wasn't costly. And it was a huge benefit to the church people who they were able to meet with, and a great encouragement. And so even having kind of structured, unstructured things like that, I think during the week made it feel less like a task for the students to do, or even a task for the church to do. It made it a genuine partnership that was focused on people. And so I think that was one of the things that working hard in the lead up enabled that to happen, and having a clear understanding of what was meant to happen and what the expectations were during the week. I think it helped to make that happen. But my role during the week was just almost a case of praying a lot and just watching God working through the various things that we'd worked hard to plan. And probably the highlights during the week, it was great whenever we got together with the Moore College team. We'd get together every morning, and then we'd pray with whoever was available every afternoon at the same time, and we'd get to hear some of the stories of the things that had been happening that as individuals, you see certain things, but coming together and hearing, I had a chat with someone, got to read the Bible with someone, at this event that we weren't all at, we saw this happen, and so hearing about God being at work and being able to pray together at points during the week and having that something that was like programmed in and prioritised. I think that was a real encouragement as
having
part of the
prayer
week too.
throughout the week was great, and you actually had someone who was who was coordinating that prayer. That was Leonie, wasn't it? Was she coordinating the prayer?
Elizabeth.
It was Elizabeth who was coordinating it.
Correct.
And Leonie kept coming along as
she
well.
did.
Which is so good.
Yep.
Both Elizabeth and Leonie coordinating that. So you had people in charge of various things. And I think that was an experience that we loved coming together and praying with the church. What you said about the structures and having them kind of in place so that we didn't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
It meant, say, on the final Sunday evening, when it was the end of everything, we were all kind of, pretty tired. We might think, we all want to go home. No one wanted to go home.
No.
We had church.
Yes.
And we had church, and it was pretty close. It was in a community centre. It was pretty close to the train station.
Yeah.
And so, because the structures were all in place, some of the students could just pop over to the train station and do some evangelism, bring people back to church. A few people came back, and no one really wanted to go home at the end. And that was so good. We did end up going home eventually, but that was great. What about afterwards? Tell us about some of the highlights in terms of the follow-up. So you had a few numbers there of people. Numbers are one thing, but each number represents a real person who's come to grow in their relationship with Christ or come to know Christ.
Yep.
So what are some of the highlights of those numbers which represent real people?
Yep. Yeah. So there were a number of people who we made contact with for the first time, some through door knocking, and so it was great to go back over each of those visits that had happened, and we're in the process now of reconnecting with each of those households, particularly the ones where we'd had a positive conversation or they'd shown an inclination to wanting to come and join us and to check out church. So that's a good story that we hope is going to continue for some time, and that some of those people will be able to join us. Some people who came along to events, we had a couple who came along to the service we had in the community centre that Lionel mentioned. They've become committed members of church, and that's just great. We're really thrilled about that. Another lady that I don't think as a church we would have been able to reach. She just came to church to check things out during the week at a time when there wasn't any event on or anything for her, I don't think. But some of the students were around and they initiated a conversation and had a marathon, several hour conversation with this lady. And she's ended up coming back to our church and is reading the Bible with someone is gradually connecting with others at that service. And so that's just thrilling. And that wouldn't have happened. We just wouldn't have even met her, I don't imagine, or wouldn't have been able to kind of care for her in the way that the students are able to. So that's every time we see her, we're we're thankful for the partnership that we've been able to have. That's some of the highlights.
I've shared that in God's providence, a friend of mine who I knew from high school just came along to one of the events, and he turned up. He walked in the door. I happened to be sitting right next to the door, and we said, "Oh, hello," and he's come along to church since then.
Yes, he has.
He's keen to continue coming along. So that's really exciting too. Yeah. Maybe a final question would be: is there anything that there's lots of ways in which it worked well. Anything that you think you do differently, or anything extra that you learned over the time that you think, hey, next time we do this, I'd love to do it this as well.
I think one thing that I've shared with the team here about follow up. I think that's one thing that we would love to improve on is just making sure that we do follow up well.
And I understand. I think you were saying that actually people were followed up quite well.
Yeah.
It's just that maybe you were thinking if there'd been a lot more people to follow up.
Yeah, we'd be struggling.
So maybe getting those structures in place.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Expecting and praying that God will bring so many people that you actually need.
Yep. So like having someone who's got that as their focus, and for that reason, like either has a light or no, minimal load in other areas during the week, so that can be done really well. Because the worst thing would be, that everything goes really well during the week, and someone becomes a Christian, or someone has a significant growth in their faith, and then they slip through the cracks because something in follow up, bit of paper got lost, or a phone call wasn't made, or something like that. Yeah, that would be tragic. And I guess just wanting to make sure that someone is solely focused on that area, or that's their main focus, to minimise the chance of that sort of thing happening. And I think as well, just so one of the big things that at the time didn't seem like a big decision, but became one, was what you mentioned about like Elizabeth and having a dedicated person whose sole focus is on helping the church to pray well for the open week. It's really easy, even having the extra support of the Moore College team, to functionally treat it as a human endeavour, and and having someone who I guess is helping to work against that and inform, and then as we get together to share like bright spots about what God's doing, or someone who helps us to do that, who's like consistently reminding us, actually, like this is something that God's been working on the whole time. So we pray for big things to happen during Open Week and during Moore College Mission, and when big things happen, like we need help to give thanks for them and to recognise our absolute reliance. And so
and that's something that you did do. You did have Elizabeth. That was a really great thing.
But that's something that I never would have thought would be particularly important, and ended up being like crucial.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I hope that that's been helpful for people considering partnering with Moore College in a week-long mission. You might want to call it Open Week rather than mission. We called it Open Week, which is a little bit confusing because we have our own Open Week here at Moore College, but that's okay. It was great. I hope that's been helpful for you, and I do hope and pray that there are many more opportunities to share the great gospel of the Lord Jesus and bring people to salvation through partnership with churches and other organisations and Moore College into the future.